The first scream did not come from the human soldier or the alien princess. It came from the sky itself. A long trembling cry as the twin moons of Valreth shifted behind dark clouds, casting a cold silver glow across the royal courtyard. The human soldier named Aiden stood still, his breath shaking as he stared at the alien princess who slowly stepped toward him, her violet skin glowing faintly under the moonlight, her eyes deep, ancient, and filled with a sadness he could not understand. She moved like someone carrying the weight of an entire world, each step gentle yet heavy, as if her heart was pulling chains behind her. Aiden had seen alien warriors, alien beasts, alien kings in their massive armor, but he had never seen anything as quietly powerful as this broken princess who looked at him like he was something impossible, something forbidden, something dangerous and sacred at the same time. Her voice trembled when she spoke, soft like wind passing through glass. "Human, why did the stars bring you here tonight?" she asked, and Aiden felt the question sink inside him like a stone dropped into deep water. He did not know the answer. He only knew that the moment he saw her standing alone with her hand shaking, he felt something inside himself change forever. She was Princess Serena, the only daughter of King Thalion, ruler of the Valrithi Dominion, a race known for their ancient bloodline and their cruel law that a princess who cannot bear an heir is considered cursed. The whispers across the empire said Serena was infertile, doomed, unworthy, but standing before Aiden she looked anything but weak. Her presence felt like a storm locked inside a fragile shell. Aiden stepped closer without thinking, his human heart pounding fast. "I don't know why I'm here," he said quietly. "I just felt someone was hurting." Serena flinched, the words hitting something tender in her chest. "I have carried this hurt for many years," she whispered, "but you are the first to notice it." There was a soft glow rising from her skin, small threads of light drifting like dust through the air. Aiden watched them float around him as if the night itself was breathing with them. For a long moment they stood there, two souls from two different worlds, connected by something neither of them understood. Then Serena reached out a trembling hand and touched Aiden's wrist, and a sudden warmth spread through his arm like fire and water mixed together, gentle but unstoppable. Her voice thinned as she said, "My body cannot follow the ancient path of my people. The healers say I can never carry the royal blood forward. And because of this, my father's rage grows each day." Aiden swallowed hard, feeling her fear as if it were his own. "So your king, your own father, blames you?" She nodded slowly. "He calls me a broken vessel, a princess with no destiny, and now the law stands ready to erase my name from the line forever." Her hand slipped from his wrist, but he caught it gently. Holding it between his palms, she looked surprised. No one had dared touch her like that in years. Aiden took a slow breath, trying to calm the storm inside himself. "You are not broken," he said, "and you are not alone." His voice was steady, but his heart felt like thunder. Serena's eyes shimmered with a strange light, not just emotion, but something older, something hidden. It pulsed like a secret heartbeat under her skin. Aiden had no idea that touching her would awaken something ancient inside her blood. Suddenly the air cracked, a sharp ripple moving through the courtyard like a silent explosion. Serena gasped and stumbled forward, her hand gripping Aiden's chest as a bright symbol lit up on her collarbone, a swirling mark that had never appeared before. Aiden caught her before she fell, holding her close as her body glowed with soft golden threads. The princess trembled violently, whispering, This cannot be. The royal sigil awakens only when the bloodline finds its destined protector." Aiden felt his breath freeze. "What does that mean?" he asked softly. Serena stared at him in disbelief, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. "It means the ancient law has chosen you, human. You are the one who can give the royal line a future." The words hit him like lightning. He had never felt smaller or more important at the same time. But before he could speak, a distant horn shattered the quiet night. Loud and furious, Serena's face went pale. "My father is coming," she whispered. Aiden looked toward the towering palace gates as armored guards began to move. Torches rising, alarms echoing across the stone walls. The glowing mark on Serena's skin faded slowly, but its meaning stayed burning in her eyes. She tightened her grip on Aiden's hand, fear trembling through her fingers. "If the king sees you now, he will kill you." And standing under the silver moons with danger closing in around them, Aiden realized something with a sharp, terrifying clarity. He was no longer just a human soldier. He had become the greatest threat to an alien king's throne, and the only hope for an infertile princess who had been waiting her whole life for a miracle. The torches of the royal guards burned brighter than the moons as they marched into the courtyard, their metal boots striking the stone like drums of war. Aiden felt the weight of every sound press against his chest, each echo reminding him that he was a human standing in the heart of an alien empire that wanted nothing from his kind except obedience or silence. Princess Serena pulled him deeper into the shadows, her fingers trembling as she clutched his hand, her breath unsteady, her glowing eyes filled with a fear so raw it made Aiden's heart twist. "You shouldn't have come tonight," she whispered as they hurried through a narrow passageway, the walls shimmering with ancient carvings that moved like flowing water in the dim moonlight. "The moment you touched me, the ancient law woke. And now my father will believe you threatened the throne." Aiden wanted to answer, but his tongue felt heavy, his mind spinning with the new truth about himself, a truth he had never asked for but could no longer ignore. The distant horns grew sharper, slicing the night air. Guards were spreading, searching every corner like wolves hunting a scent. Serena stopped near an old stone archway, placing her palm on a carved sigil that lit up under her touch. The wall behind it shifted silently, opening to reveal a hidden corridor, shadows dancing inside like living mist. "We must hide until the moon sets," she said. "If the king finds you now, he will spill your blood before anyone can question him." Aiden stepped inside the hidden passage with her, the darkness closing around them but not frightening him, not when he could hear her heartbeat shaking beside him. "Why does he hate humans so much?" he asked softly. Serena closed her eyes, her voice breaking as she answered. "Because of the prophecy my ancestors left behind. It says one day a human will hold the fate of the royal bloodline in his hands. My father fears losing his power more than he fears the gods. So he has hunted any sign of the prophecy since he took the throne." Her words felt like a blade sliding into Aiden's chest. "And now he thinks I'm the human in the prophecy," he whispered. Serena nodded slowly. "When the royal sigil appeared on my skin after your touch, it confirmed everything he always feared. He will believe you can give the Empire an heir he cannot control." Aiden rubbed his forehead, the reality crashing down on him like a wave. "I'm just a soldier," he muttered. "I never wanted to be part of any royal bloodline." Serena stepped closer, her voice soft but steady. "Fate does not ask for permission. It chooses without mercy." Her eyes glowed with a quiet pain, a pain Aiden wanted to reach in and pull out with his bare hands. The corridor suddenly shook as heavy footsteps echoed above them, dust falling from the ancient ceiling. Serena grabbed Aiden's arm, pulling him deeper into the secret path. "My father's elite guard," she whispered. "They track energy signals and heat traces. They are not like normal soldiers." Aiden quickened his pace, his mind sharpened by survival instinct, but despite the fear crawling up his spine, his focus stayed locked on Serena, the fragile way she held her breath, the quiet courage behind her shaking voice. After several turns, they reached a small chamber lit by blue flames dancing along the walls. Serena's shoulders relaxed slightly. "We are safe here for a moment," she said. Aiden could finally look at her without fear of being seen, and he saw the exhaustion etched deeply under her eyes. "You've been living like this your whole life," he said quietly. "Hunted in your own home." Serena lowered herself to the cold floor, her voice a whisper filled with years of buried sorrow. "Since the healers declared me infertile, the royal court treated me like a flaw in the bloodline. I was left alone, watched like a prisoner, pitied by some, despised by others." Aiden sat beside her, their shoulders almost touching. "But the sigil," he said, "it woke because of me. Doesn't that mean you were never broken? Never cursed?" Her breath hitched, her eyes filling with a light he had not seen before, a fragile hope that had been locked deep inside her chest. "I never imagined it could mean that," she whispered. "I never imagined destiny would come in the form of a human." Aiden looked at her glowing skin, the soft flicker of blue fire reflecting in her eyes, and he felt something stir in him, something warm and steady, like the beginning of loyalty or love or something bigger than both. "Whatever this means," he said gently, "you're not facing it alone anymore." Serena stared at him, her eyes softening, but before she could speak, the chamber vibrated with a deep, distant roar. The torches flickered violently, a cold wind sweeping through the hidden passage like a warning from the gods themselves. Serena's face drained of color. "That sound," she whispered, "is not from the guards. It is my father's battle spirit awakening." Aiden's stomach tightened. "Battle spirit," he repeated. Unsure if he wanted to know what that meant, Serena stood slowly, the fear on her face replaced by a trembling resolve. When the king awakens his spirit, he can sense the presence of anyone who carries royal fate. She turned to Aiden, her voice breaking. He will sense you, he will come for you, and he will not stop until he destroys you. Aiden rose to his feet, the air around him thick with tension, the walls humming with distant power, and yet when he looked at Serena's terrified eyes, something inside him hardened like steel. He was no longer running just to save his life. He was running to protect a princess who had been denied hope for too long. And the king who searched for him was not just a ruler. He was a father who had just felt destiny slipping out of his hands, and he intended to reclaim it with blood. A low rumble rolled through the hidden chamber like the growl of some ancient beast waking from a long sleep. Aiden felt the vibrations travel through the floor and climb into his bones, shaking him harder than any battlefield explosion he had survived. Princess Serena froze beside him, her breath caught halfway in her chest, her eyes widening with a fear that made Aiden's heart clench. The glowing blue flames along the walls bent backward as if pushed by an invisible force, their light flickering violently across her trembling face. "My father has awakened the spirit of dominion," she whispered. Her voice thin and shaking, Aiden swallowed hard, the words feeling heavier than the stones around them. "What does that mean for us?" he asked. Though a part of him already knew the answer would not be gentle, Serena slowly pressed her hand over her heart, where the faint trace of the royal sigil had appeared. "It means he can feel the pulse of royal fate anywhere on this land, and your connection to me has tied you to it." Aiden felt the weight of those words settle over him like a cloak made of iron. "So he's coming," he murmured. Serena nodded, her voice trembling. "Faster than we can run, stronger than any guard, angrier than the gods themselves." The chamber shuddered again, dust falling like soft gray rain from the ceiling. Aiden instinctively stepped in front of her, shielding her with his body even though he knew it wouldn't stop a king capable of sensing destinies. Serena looked at him, her face lit by the flickering flames, and for a brief, painful moment she seemed like a child remembering what love felt like. "You don't have to protect me," she whispered. "I've survived years of fear." Aiden shook his head, his voice firm yet soft. "You survived because you were alone, but you aren't alone anymore." She lowered her eyes, the fragile shimmer in them making his chest ache. The walls began to hum with a deep golden light, ancient symbols carved into stone waking one by one, glowing brighter as if answering a silent call. Serena gasped, stepping back. "He is using the royal resonance. He is searching the passageways." Aiden felt a chill crawl up his spine as the symbols pulsed like a heartbeat. "Closer, louder, harder. We need to move," he said, taking her wrist gently but firmly. She hesitated only a moment before following him, her steps soft but quick, her breath fast and shallow. The hidden corridor stretched ahead of them like a throat made of stone, twisting in ways that made Aiden wonder how many secrets this palace held, how many tragedies had been buried in its shadows long before he ever arrived. As they hurried deeper, Serena whispered under her breath, her voice filled with pain. "I never thought the prophecy would be real. I never believed it could destroy everything I know." Aiden glanced over at her, his heart tightening at the sight of her shaking hands. "Maybe it won't destroy anything," he said. "Maybe it will save something instead." Her eyes flickered to him with a fragile hope that looked almost afraid to breathe. "You speak of saving a kingdom that hates your kind," she whispered. "You speak of saving a princess who was never meant to survive her own bloodline." Aiden squeezed her hand gently. "I speak of saving someone who doesn't deserve to suffer alone." Serena blinked hard, her emotions trembling like a candle struggling in wind. Before she could answer, a loud roar tore through the corridor behind them, so sharp that the ancient walls split with hairline cracks. The sound was neither human nor animal. It was a cry forged from fury and old magic. A king calling out for blood he believed was stolen from him. Serena grabbed Aiden's arm and pulled him into another side passage just moments before a wave of golden force blasted down the tunnel they had been running through. The shock wave hit the stone where they had stood seconds ago, turning it into molten fragments that hissed like burning stars. Aiden stared at the destruction with wide eyes, his breath stuck in his throat. He would kill his own daughter just to erase the prophecy, he whispered. Serena nodded with trembling lips. "He believes losing control is worse than losing family." They kept moving, breathless, the air thick with dust and the scent of scorched stone. Their steps echoed in the narrow tunnels, a soft, desperate rhythm that matched the pounding fear in their chests. After a long stretch of running, they finally entered another hidden chamber. this one filled with old crystal mirrors that reflected distorted images of their shadows. Serena leaned against one of them, sliding to the floor as though her strength had faded completely. Aiden knelt beside her, brushing the dust from her shoulder. "You're exhausted," he said softly. "You need to rest," but Serena shook her head, forcing her shaking hands to steady. "If I rest now, he will catch us. He is too close, I can feel it. His spirit is burning through the palace like fire searching for dry leaves." Aiden placed a hand on her cheek, lifting her gaze to meet his. "Then we will face him together," he said quietly. Her eyes widened, shimmering with fear and something deeper. "You don't understand," she whispered. "He will show you no mercy, not even a moment to speak. And when he sees the bond between us, he will unleash the full wrath of the Dominion." Aiden leaned closer, his voice steady. "I've faced death before, but I have never faced losing someone who matters this much." Serena stared at him, breath trembling, the glow of her eyes softening into something fragile and warm, something she had not allowed herself to feel in years. Before she could reply, another roar thundered through the chambers. Louder and closer than ever, Aiden stood and pulled her gently to her feet, the golden symbols on the walls pulsing brighter with each approaching heartbeat. The king was no longer searching, he had found them, and the space between father and daughter had become a battlefield where destiny demanded its price. The air inside the mirror chamber twisted as if the walls were breathing, each reflected surface warping under a pressure that did not belong to this world. Aiden felt the temperature drop, a cold that crawled under his skin and crept into his lungs. Princess Serena gripped his arm tightly, her violet fingers trembling as shadows distorted across the shimmering mirrors. One reflection after another rippled like disturbed water, until the shape of a tall, armored figure appeared faintly within the glass. Not stepping through it, not fully formed, but present enough to make the chamber feel smaller, heavier, and dangerously alive. Serena's voice cracked as she whispered, "He is using the Dominion veil. He can project his spirit through the mirrors. He can watch us before he arrives." Aiden's heartbeat thundered in his ears, but he stepped in front of her anyway, shielding her from those shifting reflections. "Let him watch," Aiden murmured, though fear curled beneath his ribs like a trapped animal. "I won't let him take you." The reflections grew clearer, sharper, until the king's eyes, cold, burning gold like a dying star, locked onto Aiden's even across spirit and glass. That gaze felt like a blade pressing against his throat. Serena gasped and stumbled back, covering her mouth as her father's voice broke through the mirrors, deep and furious, echoing from every surface. "Human, you dare touch the bloodline of my house?" Aiden clenched his fists, the weight of those words crashing into him like a wave. Serena shook her head desperately, tears blurring the glow in her eyes. "Father, please, he did nothing wrong. The sigil awakened on its own." The king's reflection turned toward her, and even in spectral form his fury radiated like heat from a wildfire. "Silence," he commanded, the words slamming through the chamber like a physical blow. Serena winced as if struck in the heart. Her breath stumbling out in pain, Aiden stepped forward, anger burning through his fear. "She is your daughter," he said through clenched teeth. "How can you treat her like this?" The mirrored reflections trembled as if reacting to Aiden's voice, and the king's burning stare snapped toward him with a hatred so sharp it felt ancient. "My daughter is meant to carry the legacy of 1,000 generations," he growled. "And you, a lesser creature of flesh and dust, have dared to entwine your fate with hers?" Aiden felt Serena clutch the back of his arm, her fingers trembling so hard he could feel her fear shaking through him. "He didn't entwine anything," she cried. "The sigil chose him. The prophecy chose him. I had no control." The king's expression darkened into something even colder. "And that is why he must die." The mirror shattered with a sound like 1,000 stars dying at once, pieces flying in every direction. Aiden pulled Serena into his arms, shielding her as sharp shards exploded across the chamber. The blue flames flickered wildly, the ground trembling as the air thickened with golden smoke that rose from the shattered glass like mist from a cracked world. Then the chamber doors blew open with a violent burst of force, stone fragments flying into the air, and King Thalion stepped inside in his physical form, massive and terrifying, wearing armor carved with ancient runes that glowed like molten metal. His presence crushed the air around him, making Aiden feel as though he were standing inside a collapsing star. Serena stumbled forward, tears running down her cheeks. "Please, Father, don't do this. He did nothing. I didn't ask for destiny. I didn't ask for anything." but the king raised one massive hand, and a wave of golden energy forced her backward, as if an invisible wall had slammed into her chest. She hit the ground hard, her breath knocked from her lungs. Aiden lunged toward her, but the king stepped between them like a mountain casting its shadow. "You have brought shame to the Dominion," the king growled as he stared down at Aiden with pure disgust. "You have awakened a bond that should never exist, and now the only way to protect my empire is to destroy you." Aiden met his gaze, even though it felt like staring into the heart of a storm. "If killing me saves her," he said in a low voice, "then do it. But don't hurt your own daughter," Serena cried out. "No," her voice cracking with heartbreak. The king's eye twitched, a strange hesitation flickering through his expression, something sharp and painful, something almost like grief, but it vanished beneath the weight of his rage as he raised his hand higher, golden energy gathering in a swirling sphere of light that hummed with ancient power. Aiden braced himself, his body tense, ready for pain he knew might end him. But Serena's scream tore through the chamber before the king released the blast. It wasn't a cry of fear, it was a cry of breaking fate, a sound so sharp and raw it made the golden energy around the king flicker. She pushed herself forward, her palms slamming into the floor, her body shaking with a power she didn't understand. A soft glow rose from her skin, brighter than before, stronger, uncontrolled. Serena's voice shook the air. "If you kill him, you will kill the heir the prophecy promised." The king froze, the golden sphere pulsing violently in his hand. Aiden stared at Serena in stunned disbelief, her words echoing through his mind like thunder. She had said it not to save herself, but to save him. Exposing the deepest truth the prophecy held, Aiden felt his world tilt, and the king's expression twisted as the chamber trembled around them. For the first time, uncertainty cracked the king's rage, and the fate of a forbidden heir hung in the silence between them, suspended like a blade waiting to fall. The chamber fell into a silence so heavy it felt like the air itself forgot how to move. Aiden stood frozen, the king's glowing attack still hovering inches from his chest like a trapped sun waiting to burst. Princess Serena knelt on the cold floor, her body trembling from the force she had unleashed, her breath uneven, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and fragile courage that made Aiden's heart twist. Her words still echoed through the chamber like the fading ring of a struck bell. "If you kill him, you will kill the heir the prophecy promised." The king's hand shook, the golden sphere flickering as doubt cracked through his rage like a lightning strike across stone. He stared at his daughter as if seeing her for the first time in years, the weight of her declaration pressing against old beliefs carved into his soul. Aiden swallowed hard, his body tense but his eyes locked on Serena's. She looked at him with a trembling softness that burned deeper than any wound he had ever carried. The king's voice finally broke through the silence. "Low and dangerous, explain," he commanded, the single word heavy enough to pull the room closer to collapse. Serena rose shakily to her feet, leaning on a shattered mirror frame for support. "When the royal sigil awakened," she whispered, "it did not react to me alone, it reacted to him. The prophecy says the future heir will be tied to a human's fate. The sigil only appears when that bond begins." Aiden felt his pulse hammering, the truth crashing into him with dizzying force. He had never imagined destiny could pull him into something so vast, so ancient, so dangerous. The king turned toward Aiden with eyes that burned not only with fury, but with something darker, something like fear of losing control over a destiny he believed belonged only to him. "You expect me to believe a human can carry royal lineage," the king growled. His voice like cracking stone. Serena stepped between them, her arms spread despite the tremor in her hands. "It doesn't matter what you believe," she said gently. "It has already begun." The golden energy in the king's hand pulsed once, then slowly dimmed, withdrawing back into his armor like a reluctant beast returning to its cage. Aiden exhaled deeply, not realizing how long he had been holding his breath. The room felt slightly lighter, but danger still clung to the air like poison smoke. Serena touched her father's armored chest with trembling fingers. "I was told I was broken," she whispered. "I was told I could never carry the bloodline forward. But maybe the path was never meant to be the way our people believed." Her voice softened into a fragile plea. "Please, Father, let destiny breathe before you destroy it." The king turned his head slightly, unable to look directly into her eyes, but Aiden saw something shift in his posture, a stiffness that cracked just a little, like an old scar tearing open to reveal the wound beneath. For a moment he looked less like a king and more like a father who had failed the one he loved most. But the moment passed quickly as his expression hardened again. "You speak of destiny," he said. But you forget the cost. If the council learns of this bond between you and a human, they will demand blood, not proof. Serena's lips parted, her breath catching. Then let me face them, she said. Though her voice shook with fear she couldn't hide. The king shook his head slowly. You do not understand their cruelty. They would tear the prophecy apart and bury its truth. His eyes shifted to Aiden, colder now, calculating. And they would torture him until he broke, until the sigil faded. Until the bond died. Aiden stepped forward, unable to stay silent. I don't care about councils or ancient laws, he said, his voice steady despite the fear burning inside him. But I won't let anyone hurt her. Serena looked at him with an emotion so soft it nearly broke her. A gratitude that trembled like light on water. Before the king could respond, the ground shuddered violently beneath their feet, dust falling from the fractured ceiling. The chamber lights flickered as a distant horn wailed through the palace corridors. Serena's eyes widened in horror. The council guard, she whispered. They must have felt the sigil pulse. They're coming. Aiden felt adrenaline surge through him. How many, he asked, Serena's voice cracked. Hundreds. And they obey no king when prophecy is involved. They obey the ancient law alone. The king's jaw tightened, rage rising again like a storm. They come to take my daughter, he snarled. And they come to kill the human. Aiden glanced toward the shattered doorway as armored footsteps thundered closer. Dozens, then hundreds, echoing like a flood of marching death. Serena grabbed Aiden's arm, fear shaking her voice. We must run, please, Aiden. They will show no mercy. But before he could answer, the king stepped in front of both of them, his massive form blocking the only exit. Golden flames erupted around his armor, casting the chamber in violent light as he growled. No one touches my blood. He turned his head just slightly toward Aiden, his voice low but fierce. Human, do not mistake this moment for acceptance. I still do not trust you, Aiden nodded. I don't trust you either. For the first time, a sliver of respect flickered in the king's eyes. The pounding steps grew louder, the ground shaking beneath the weight of the approaching council guard. The king raised his hand and the chamber walls lit up with ancient symbols. Trembling with locked power, stay behind me, he ordered. If destiny has chosen this path, then let us survive the night to question it. And as the chamber doors shattered under the force of the arriving soldiers, Aiden found himself standing beside a furious alien king and a frightened but brave princess, not as an enemy, but as the human fate had dared to choose. The chamber exploded into chaos the moment the council guard broke through the shattered doorway, their silver armor glowing with sharp white light that cut across the ruins like lightning. Aiden felt the shockwave crash against him, pushing him back a step, but King Thalion stood unmoved, his aura rising like a golden storm that filled the entire room with a heat that made the mirrors melt on the walls. Princess Serena grabbed Aiden's hand as the first line of guards charged forward, their weapons humming with ancient energy, her voice trembling with terror and hope tangled together. Stay close to me, she whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Aiden nodded, tightening his grip on her fingers, the simple touch grounding him even as the world around them cracked open. The king raised both hands and slammed them down into the floor, a thunderous roar erupting through the chamber. Golden light surged from the ground like a molten wave, knocking the first group of guards backward in a violent burst that shook the entire palace. But more guards poured in through the smoke, dozens at first, then hundreds, their armor clanking like steel heartbeats marching toward their prey. Serena pulled Aiden behind one of the fallen pillars, her voice shaking as she spoke. The council will not stop. They believe the prophecy threatens their power. They want the sigil erased. They want you erased. Aiden peeked from behind the pillar, watching the king battle alone against a storm of soldiers. Every movement he made was heavy with ancient power, but even he was being pushed back step by step, the sheer number of guards overwhelming even his strength. The sight twisted something deep inside Aiden's chest, a strange mix of fear, anger, and a fierce desire to protect the princess who stood trembling at his side. The ground trembled again, dust falling like ash around them. Serena pressed a hand to her heart, her breath uneven. Aiden, she whispered, I feel something waking inside me, something I can't control. A soft glow began to spread under her skin, the same glow that had appeared when the sigil awakened, but brighter now, pulsing like a heartbeat connected to something older than both of them. Aiden steadied her shoulders gently. Whatever it is, don't fight it, he said. It chose you for a reason. Her lips parted, her breath trembling as the glow expanded, wrapping her body in faint golden threads. Her eyes widened as she felt the power rising. I'm afraid, she confessed in a voice so soft it almost broke. Aiden touched her cheek, his voice low. Then let me be afraid with you. Her breath shook, but she nodded, her fingers curling into the fabric of his sleeve as if anchoring herself. Another shockwave burst across the chamber as more guards pushed forward. The king staggering for the first time as a spear of silver light struck his armor with a violent crack. "Father," Serena cried, stepping forward without thinking, the glow around her growing brighter with each heartbeat. The king turned slightly, blood dripping from a crack in his gauntlet, his voice rough but still commanding. "Stay back," he roared. "Both of you." But Serena didn't stop, something inside her pulling her forward like fate had taken hold of her heart. The guards saw her movement and redirected their attacks instantly. Dozens of weapons raised toward her fragile form. Aiden lunged forward, grabbing her waist and pulling her behind him. "Get down," he shouted, throwing himself between her and the oncoming blast of silver energy. The impact hit him like a burning hammer, slamming into his back and sending him flying across the floor with Serena in his arms. Pain tore through him like fire, his vision blurring as he tried to hear her voice through the ringing in his ears. "Aiden," she cried, shaking him, "please stay with me. Please don't leave me." He forced his eyes open, the world spinning, her glowing face the only thing he could focus on. "I'm not going anywhere," he whispered through the pain. "I promised I wouldn't leave you." Her tears fell onto his cheek, each drop bright with the glow of the awakened sigil. The moment her tears touched his skin, a sudden warm surge exploded through him, spreading across his back where the wound burned. The pain dimmed, softened, faded. Aiden gasped. Feeling strength returned to his limbs like water rushing back into a dry river. Serena stared at her hands, trembling. "I healed you," she whispered, shock trembling through her voice. "The sigil, it's healing you." Before he could respond, a loud crash shook the chamber as the council guard unleashed another massive blast toward the king. Knocking him to one knee, Serena screamed, her voice slicing through the air, the glow around her bursting outward in a wave that made every guard in the room freeze. Her eyes glowed pure gold now, her hair lifting in a soft wind that came from nowhere, the sigil burning brighter than the lamps along the walls. Aiden rose beside her, awe and concern mixing inside him. "What's happening to you?" he whispered. Serena looked at him with fear and wonder. "The bond," she said. "It's growing stronger. It's merging our energies." Aiden turned toward the guards who were slowly recovering from the burst of power. "Can you control it?" he asked. Serena shook her head helplessly. "I don't know," more guards charged. Their weapons raised high. Aiden stepped forward, shielding her with his body again, but she grabbed his arm, her voice shaking with certainty she didn't feel. "No," she whispered, "let me try." She raised her hand slowly, her palms glowing like rising suns. Aiden watched as the air around her shimmered, vibrating with a force that felt alive. When the guards attacked, Serena released her power. A wave of golden light tore through the chamber like a silent scream, the floor cracking, the walls trembling, the soldiers thrown back in a ripple of pure energy. Aiden stared at her in stunned disbelief, the glow fading slowly from her skin. Serena swayed on her feet, knees trembling. "Aiden," she whispered weakly, "I don't think I can hold this for much longer." He stepped in, catching her before she collapsed. Her head falling against his chest, the king rose slowly, staring at his daughter with a look that was no longer pure anger, but something shaken, confused, almost broken. Outside the chamber, the palace trembled again, dozens more guards approaching. The night far from over, Aiden held Serena close, her warm breath against his neck, and for the first time he realized the prophecy was not just about an heir or a throne. It was about a bond powerful enough to shake an entire empire, and they had only begun to feel its weight. The chamber trembled with the footsteps of 1,000 soldiers, their armor flashing like distant stars under the burning gold of the moons. Aiden held Serena close, her trembling body pressed against his, her glowing eyes reflecting fear and a fragile hope that seemed stronger than the walls around them. He could feel her heartbeat, fast and uneven, yet pulsing with something ancient and powerful, a rhythm that tied their fates together tighter than either of them could have imagined. "The king," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the thunder of approaching forces. "He's moving toward us. He can feel the sigil's energy. He'll stop at nothing." Aiden's jaw tightened, every muscle coiled like steel. "Then we face him," he said softly, his hand tightening around hers. "Whatever comes, we face it together." Serena shivered but nodded, her lips trembling as golden threads of the sigil pulsed faintly across her skin. Aiden could see her struggle to control it, the power flowing through her like water through broken channels, raw and unpredictable, yet filled with a strange beauty that made his chest ache. The king stepped into the room, his golden aura brighter than the flames that licked the shattered walls, his armor glowing like molten metal, each movement echoing with a presence older than centuries. His eyes burned with a fury that could melt stone. But as he looked at his daughter, something inside him faltered, a small crack in the armor of his wrath. "You have become more than a princess," he said slowly, his voice trembling with a strange mixture of fear and awe. "And this human," he gestured toward Aiden, "he is no mere soldier. He is tied to your fate, to the bloodline I have guarded for lifetimes." Aiden stepped forward slightly, his gaze steady. "I never asked for this," he said quietly. "I never wanted power or prophecy or war. But I will not abandon her." Serena took a deep breath, the glow around her flickering as her energy pulsed in sync with Aiden's heartbeat. "Father," she whispered, "I am not broken. I am not cursed. The sigil awakened because it saw hope, it saw love. It saw something beyond your laws." The king's gaze hardened again for a moment, but the golden energy around him shivered like it was unsure. His hand trembled slightly as he lowered it, and for the first time, the immense weight of the Dominion's law seemed smaller than the bond between the human and his daughter. Aiden felt a surge of hope, a warmth he had not dared to feel. But before relief could settle, the distant roar of the council guard echoed through the palace corridors, louder and closer than ever. Their armor shining, their numbers growing, a tide that threatened to crush everything in its path. Serena's hands trembled as she whispered, "They're coming for the sigil, for us. For you." Aiden stepped in front of her, feeling the gravity of the moment pressing down on him. "Then we fight together," he said, his voice carrying a resolve that was louder than the rumble of the approaching army. Serena nodded, the glow around her pulsing fiercely. Brighter than ever before, the king raised his hand, golden light surging through the room as he prepared to unleash his full power. Yet his gaze never left his daughter, a silent promise of protection that rivaled any law he had ever enforced. "Do not fail me," he said quietly. And for once it was not a command but a plea. The council guard charged into the chamber, a wall of silver and white light that thundered against the golden energy of the king and the raw glow of Serena. Aiden lunged forward, pulling her behind him, the world shaking violently around them. The clash was deafening, a storm of energy that bent the air, shattered stone, and sent sparks flying like stars falling from the heavens. Serena's energy erupted outward, a radiant pulse that wrapped around Aiden, her glow intertwining with his presence as if they were one being. One of the closest guards struck with a silver blade aimed at her chest, but the sigil flared, melting the weapon into harmless liquid metal before it touched her. Aiden watched in awe, realizing that her power was not just protective, it was alive, responsive, tied to their bond in ways the prophecy had only hinted at. The king roared, stepping forward to meet the charge, golden energy tearing through the ranks of soldiers with a force that made the palace quake. He did not strike Aiden. He did not strike Serena. He struck the threat, clearing a path for the bond he had spent lifetimes doubting. Serena gasped, exhausted yet alive. "Father," she whispered, her eyes flickering with tears. The king's gaze softened, the fire of anger tempered by the realization of what had been awakened. "You have survived," he said, his voice carrying both relief and wonder. "And in surviving, you have brought something no law, no council, and no prophecy could ever create." Aiden held her close, her warm glow pulsing against his chest. "We did it together," he whispered. The remaining guards fell back, unwilling to face the fury and light that had erupted in the chamber. The prophecy fulfilled not through fear, not through law, but through courage, bond, and trust. Serena's tears fell onto his chest, each drop shimmering, and for the first time she felt free. The king stepped closer, kneeling slightly to meet their eyes, a gesture of acceptance and awe. "Then the heir," he said slowly, "will be born not from law or power, but from the courage to defy what we feared." Aiden looked at Serena, her hand glowing softly in his, her violet eyes reflecting both the past and the infinite possibilities of the future. They were no longer a soldier and a princess, no longer merely human and alien. They were the living proof of a bond that could shake empires and bend destiny. And in that moment, under the twin moons in the shattered palace, the world held its breath because humanity had risen. And the heir of an alien empire had been chosen, not by law, not by blood, but by courage, love, and an unbreakable bond. The night finally seemed to exhale, leaving them standing together, tired, scarred, but unbroken, ready to face whatever the dawn would bring.